Hi, I'm Steven Horne, a professional member or registered herbalist of the American Herbalist Guild, and the topic I want to talk to you about today is the heart of good health, which of course is referring to our circulatory system, the system which carries the blood throughout our body and delivers the oxygen and nutrients that our cells need, and also helps to remove carbon dioxide and waste from the cellular processes. So let's start by taking an overview of the circulatory system. This is just a nice, really cute, simplified graphic. At the center we have the heart, which of course is the core of this system. And the heart basically starts by receiving blood that's coming back from the body, and it first pumps that blood into the lungs. So that blood can then be re-oxygenated. And after the blood is reoxygenated, it comes back into the heart and then is pumped out through the arteries to go to the various organs of the body, the brain, and all the other systems of the body, where it breaks down into little beds called capillaries, where oxygen and nutrient exchange takes place. The blood now carrying some of the waste materials from the cells, and also the carbon dioxide then is taken back through the veins to the heart for the process to start all over again. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death in all Western civilized societies. So the question becomes, what is it that gives us a higher risk factor for heart disease? And interestingly enough, it's not high cholesterol, which is the most commonly blamed thing for heart disease. There's a much higher correlation between high insulin levels as a risk factor for heart disease than there are between high cholesterol levels. High levels of insulin come from eating a diet with way too many sugars and simple carbohydrates in it. And this greatly increases inflammation in the body, which has been shown to be the actual root cause of heart disease. It's basically a problem where you get inflammation in the lining of the arteries that starts building up intestinal plaque. Environmental toxins also contribute to this problem. Chlorine and other halogens, which have a harmful effect on blood capillaries. In fact, the rise of heart disease roughly correlates with the rise of chlorination of drinking waters. And a doctor in the US did research on this and wrote a book on it called Coronaries, Cholesterol, and Chlorine. Heavy metals also play a role in this. And of course, oxidative stress and inflammation in general, which again is linked to the high insulin levels and the environmental toxins. Emotional stress also plays a big factor in cardiovascular disease, as does a sedentary lifestyle. We all know that exercise helps improve cardiovascular function, and many of us, me included, sit at a desk way too much. Some of the signs that your heart may need help, that you may need to work on your cardiovascular system, that you can really depend on as being pretty dependable signs that this is a major system you need to work on, include gum disease. If you have gingivitis or bleeding of the gums and gum pockets, this is a pretty good indication that you also have inflammation in your coronary arteries that can lead to cardiovascular disease. The cause and effect relationship here is a little bit foggy. It's possible that part of this is due to the fact that the deep pockets in your gums are allowing bacteria to get into your bloodstream, or other people actually believe that they're both arising from the same problem, that there's a metabolic disturbance due to the high insulin levels and the other problems that's causing inflammation both in the gums and the arteries. Whatever, your risk factor for heart disease goes up greatly if you also have gingivitis. If you have a red nose with little capillaries showing on the tip of your nose, that's another indication that you may be having problems with your circulatory system. A crease, a vertical crease in the left earlobe, is also an indication of potential heart problems. Heavy plaque formation on the teeth. In other words, if you tend to form a lot of plaque, that can also be an indication that you're more prone to form plaque in the cardiovascular system. Traditional medicine suggests that a red tip on the tongue can be a sign of high stress and the potential for heart problems that go with it. Pains, of course, in the chest and shortness of breath are very important signs, and signs that you probably should take seriously enough that you should go get your heart checked by a medical doctor to make sure that you're okay, because those are very early warning signs that you're take that back. Those are not early warning signs you're developing heart disease. There are signs that you probably have a high risk of having heart disease developing already. So if we want to keep our cardiovascular system healthy, one of the things that we need to do is get exercise. This doesn't have to be the kind of exercise, where we are, trying to be a marathon athlete. It just means getting some regular physical activity, taking a 30 to 60 minute walk every day, doing some Tai Chi or yoga, swimming, playing a round of golf. These kinds of activities that are just pleasant, enjoyable, moderate exercise really improve your heart function. They slow your heart rate, they help to lower your blood pressure. Now, if you get tired doing exercise, then you need to use some supplements to increase cellular energy production, because your heart needs some support in producing energy, which we'll talk about later on in the program. It's also good, if you want to avoid heart disease, to basically look at your diet, clean up those things in the diet that are likely to contribute to your developing cardiovascular disease. And there are things that actually we should avoid if we want good health in general. And the first one is refined carbohydrates. As I mentioned, there's a large correlation between diabetes and heart disease, between excess weight and heart disease, and all of that has to do with something called metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance. And we develop insulin resistance because we consume way too many simple carbs, more than our body really needs, and the body has to produce a lot of insulin to try to counteract that. And then through that mechanism, insulin, we increase inflammation and a lot of other problems, and eventually we start developing insulin resistance, and then that leads into the problems of obesity and diabetes and heart disease, which are all linked together. The other big thing that we should avoid in our diets is processed fats and oils, which include margarine, shortening, and partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, but frankly, most vegetable oils, period. Vegetable oils are very high in omega-6 essential fatty acids. They're very low in omega-3 essential fatty acids. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids has a lot to do with cardiovascular disease, because higher amounts of omega-3 fatty acids tend to be anti-inflammatory and anti the development of heart disease. High levels of omega-6 tend to be pro-inflammatory, which is pro the development of heart disease. In addition, the only kind of cholesterol that can actually stick to your arteries is oxidized cholesterol, or cholesterol that's been damaged by free radicals. So the whole idea of free radicals and taking antioxidant nutrients is really important to preventing this. But you're going to get oxidized cholesterol from powdered milk, powdered eggs, and butter. And there was these foods that have been dehydrated, which oxidizes the cholesterol. In laboratory animal studies where they're studying plaque formation, I have read that they actually use oxidized cholesterol, not the kind of cholesterol that would be found in fresh eggs or fresh meat or fresh milk. Modern feedlot animal proteins, animals that are grass-fed have higher levels of omega-3, lower levels of omega-6, more of a nutrient profile that actually favors reduction of inflammation, versus animals that are fed heavy diets of grain and locked in cages actually have a different profile. And then also all of the food additives and chemicals and so forth that we want to avoid as part of just having a general healthy diet. Things that are good for our heart include lots of fresh fruits and vegetables because of their antioxidant capabilities, which help to protect cholesterol from oxidizing and therefore from sticking to the lining of your arteries. And good fats. Olive oil is a very good one. Not the best to cook in, but really good for salads and so forth. Coconut oil and butter both contain medium chain saturated fatty acids, which are actually very good for your heart and do not contribute to weight gain and are not part of the problem of developing any health problems with. So they're both very, very good for you. Fish and fish oils, because of their high omega-3 content, and of course omega-3 fatty acid supplements, as well as nuts, seeds, avocados, and other natural sources of dietary fats. Contrary to popular belief, low-fat diets are not the answer to cardiovascular disease. I think we'll have a little bit more discussion on that in a minute. And also grass-fed, pastured animal proteins. Now, let's, before we get into any supplements, address this whole thing about cholesterol and saturated fats and heart disease. So it's commonly believed, and it's been, because it's been taught so much over the last 20 or so years, that cholesterol is bad for you, and eating foods high in cholesterol is bad for your health. So you see someone and they're eating a big juicy hamburger and they say, heart attack in waiting. Okay, that's not really true. It doesn't work that way. We'll see why in a minute. We also have a belief that high cholesterol causes heart disease. That is, that just because your cholesterol is elevated, that's what causes heart disease. Bring your cholesterol down, that reduces your risk of heart disease. And that we're also taught that LDL cholesterol is bad cholesterol and HDL is good cholesterol. That saturated fats are bad for you and polyunsaturated fats are good for you. That and that low-fat diets reduce your risk of heart disease. These beliefs drive the sale of statin drugs, low-fat foods, no cholesterol foods, and other products. But the scientific evidence suggests that none of these statements are true. So let's start with some of the research. From the Journal of the American Medical Association, in a study that was published as a 30-year follow-up to the Framingham study, which was the original study that linked cholesterol and heart disease, they found that there was no correlation between high cholesterol and mortality, or in other words, dying, but there was a connection between having low cholesterol and dying. You had a higher risk of dying early with low cholesterol than you did with high cholesterol. Death from cardiovascular disease increased 14% for every 1 milligram per deciliter drop in total cholesterol per year. The Journal of Cardiac Failure, in checking analysis of over 1,000 patients with heart disease, found that people who had low cholesterol had worse outcomes and impaired survival rates versus people that had higher levels of cholesterol. Elevated cholesterol was not associated with high blood pressure, was not associated with diabetes, and was not associated with coronary heart disease. To illustrate this further, there are two tribes in Africa, the SAMBURUS and the MASAI, and these are African tribes that live as shepherds. So they primarily eat meat and milk. The Samburu drink a gallon of regular milk per day, which contains contains a whole pound of butter fat. Something that most people would think, oh, that's a heart disease waiting to happen. The MASAI don't drink as much milk, but they eat several pounds of red meat every day. Both groups have no heart disease and the lowest blood cholesterol levels of anyone in the world. That's because if you don't get enough cholesterol in your diet, your liver will make it. Statins, which are the drugs that were used to lower cholesterol in the belief that this is going to reduce your risk of heart disease, have numerous side effects, including muscle pain and weakness, increased risk of heart failure, and this is because the metabolic pathway that produces cholesterol is a shared pathway to produce a substance called CoQ10, which is an antioxidant that is also used within the mitochondria of the cell to generate energy. Statin drugs not only block the synthesis of cholesterol in the liver, they block the synthesis of CoQ10. That means that you're getting less protection from oxidative damage because of lower CoQ10 levels when you're taking statins, which is why it can increase your risk of death from heart disease and cause a lot of these other problems. It can cause problems with your brain because your brain has more cholesterol than any other organ, which can cause memory loss. Also damage to your nerves because the insulating myelin sheath of your nerves largely relies on cholesterol to function properly, causing neuropathy. Erectile dysfunction. It causes problems in women and children who are pregnant, so they're not to be used with pregnancy, and they increase your risk of cancer. The reason they increase your risk of cancer is because one of the reasons why cholesterol elevates is to bind environmental toxins. This is why they found a correlation between heart disease and cholesterol in the first place, is because in Western societies where we're exposed to a higher degree of environmental toxins, which cause inflammation, which causes heart disease, our body produces more cholesterol in an attempt to protect us from these environmental toxins. By artificially lowering the cholesterol without removing the environmental toxins, one exposes one's cells to more environmental toxins, which increases one's risk of cancer. In addition, since CoQ10 is used in the production of energy in the mitochondria, statins can produce muscle weakness because of their interfering with energy production in the cell. LDL cholesterol, or low-density lipoproteins, cholesterol is a boat. Basically, fatty acids are not water-soluble. So in order to transport fatty acids out to the cells where they're needed, the liver builds cholesterol as a boat. A cholesterol is a lipoprotein, lipid, i.e. fat, protein. The protein is the case that carries the fat to the cells. LDL cholesterol is cholesterol that contains a lot of fatty acids, and therefore it is the cholesterol the liver manufactures to take the fatty acids out to the cells. So LDL cholesterol is not bad cholesterol. LDL binds microbial endotoxins, which helps protect the body when it's fighting infection. Mice who were injected with bacterial toxins recovered when given injections of LDL. They recovered more quickly. LDL and triglycerides increase during sepsis, which is bacteria coming from the guts, which many people have because of leaky gut syndrome and other intestinal problems. So that suggests that there's a link between intestinal inflammation, leaky gut, and bowel problems and the development of cardiovascular disease. And high LDL is not beneficial. However, high LDL is not beneficial with yeast infections, and children with asthma and yeast infections have lower levels of LDL. So in other words, you run a higher risk of yeast infections if you have lower levels of LDL. People who have low cholesterol have more frequent and severe infections, and people with low cholesterol have higher rates of death than people with high cholesterol. That's an interesting fact. The fact that your risk of statins slightly reduce your risk of dying of a heart disease, of a heart attack, while increasing your risk of dying of a stroke and cancer, meaning that your overall risk of dying early increases taking statins. What a wonderful drug. Now, normal cholesterol does not contribute to arterial plaque. As I mentioned, it's our oxidized cholesterol that's used in laboratories for experiments on cholesterol. High levels of oxidized LDL are accompanied by a significant increased risk of heart attack, regardless of the total LDL levels. And as I mentioned, oxidized cholesterol is found primarily in processed foods. Cholesterol can also oxidize when you don't have enough antioxidant nutrients in the environment. So the new model of heart disease is basically you get inflammation. The inflammation sets up a process of free radical damage or oxidative stress. Cholesterol moves into the tissue and oxidizes, forming the plaque, really forming sort of a patch over the infected area, and that's how this begins. So there's an injury to the blood vessels, and the plaque always forms in high pressure areas. In other words, it's forming as a protective mechanism to prevent those high pressure arteries from blowing out because of the weakness caused by the damage. Veins, where the blood is moving more slowly through the vein, never develop plaque. If the cholesterol being present in the blood was just depositing on the arteries for no good reason, why doesn't it deposit on the veins where the blood is moving even more slowly? Cholesterol might also be deposited to conserve moisture loss from the blood from dehydration, and oxidative damage from chemicals, chlorine, oxidized cholesterol, trans fatty acids, and everything may be involved in this, as well as infection. In other words, the plaque may be very much like a boil. So, actions to take. First of all, stay hydrated. Again, I don't know how this converts into metrics, but ½ ounce of water per pound of body weight per day, plus a little bit of natural salt. This is salt that is not been refined to have all its minerals removed, which means it's going to have a little bit of natural color to it. Actually helps your body utilize that water, and believe it or not, can actually help maintain your blood pressure as long as you're taking it with lots of water. Eat lots of fresh foods, especially fresh fruits and vegetables, to get lots of antioxidant nutrients. Avoid the processed foods containing margarine, shortening, vegetable oils, as well as packaged foods containing powdered eggs, butter, or milk. Eat good fats, fresh animal fat, and organic meats, especially grass-fed, olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, organic butter, whole eggs, whole raw milk, etc. Lower your blood pressure and reduce your stress. Lifestyle analysis questions that we may need to work on the cardiovascular system. Do you want more energy? Do you eat a lot of red meat? Are there dark circles under your eyes? Do you smoke? That's a huge risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Poor concentration or memory, stressful lifestyle, feeling low or apathetic, inadequate or restless sleep, menopausal concerns in women, hair loss, high-fat, high-cholesterol diet. That's there just because that's what everybody expects. Lack of stamina, slow recovery from poor health, low-fiber diet, muscle discomfort, sleepiness when sitting, muscle joint discomfort, or insufficient exercise. So let's talk about our key system product for the cardiovascular system. It's called MEGA-CHEL. CHEL is short for chelation. And basically, what this is a thing to actually work on the underlying cause of arterial plaque, because it's loaded with antioxidant vitamins, it's got minerals, it's got coenzyme Q10, and other substances that actually go in and help to reduce the inflammatory process in the artery, and also help to chelate, or help the body break up material in the arterial plaque. And I have seen this product do wonders for all kinds of circulatory problems. In fact, I back in my 30s, I took it myself, and I had my parents take it in their elder years. It really benefited them, and I've seen people have incredible improvements in cardiovascular function after taking this product. It reduces irritation to the cardiovascular system, and it basically aids blood flow throughout the entire body. So I have program for using this product that I learned from Dr. Jack Richardson here in the United States. Basically, you start with 1 capsule twice a day. You do that for a week. You increase to 2 capsules twice a day for another week. You move up to between 4 capsules twice a day and 6 capsules twice a day, depending on how big you are. If you're under 150 pounds, 4 capsules is usually good. If you're right around that range between 150 and 200, then 5 is usually good. If you're over 200, you might need to go up as many as 6. You stay on that for 1 month for every 10 years of your life. And then you wean back off the same way you built up. In other words, you drop down 1 capsule per dose over a period of several weeks. And then it's often good to take this as your vitamin and mineral supplement, especially if you're, 60, 70 or whatever, as a maintenance. So you take like just a couple a day. We have a lot of other products that are very good for the cardiovascular system, and I don't have time to go into detail on all of them. But besides MEGA-CHEL, we have capsicum, garlic, and parsley, which actually is just an herbal formula that helps improve blood flow and has a moderate effect in helping to reduce blood pressure. Ginkgo and hawthorn. Hawthorn is a great herb as a tonic to the heart. It strengthens the heart muscle, strengthens cardio output, strengthens oxygen uptake in the heart, dilates peripheral blood vessels to take stress off the heart. Ginkgo helps improve circulation to the brain. It has an effect of helping to protect the brain from oxidative damage. So that's a good general formula. Of course, you have just the straight hawthorn. Artichoke is a substance which stimulates bile production. And the primary use of cholesterol in the body is to make bile. So by stimulating more bile production and adding some dietary fiber, that's actually the best way to naturally lower your cholesterol levels, which is also helping to clear environmental toxins out of your body, which is part of the reason why people get high cholesterol in the first place. Magnesium is one of the best things to take if you have high blood pressure. It's not the only thing, but magnesium and vitamin C both help the lining of your arteries. Magnesium helps to relax your arteries so that you can get more blood flowing through. Super omega-3 EPA, the omega-3 essential fatty acids, as I mentioned, help reduce inflammation, help reduce the risk of heart disease. Vitamin D3 is another antioxidant nutrient that has a huge beneficial effect in reducing your risk of cardiovascular disease. More people have heart attacks in the winter when vitamin D3 levels are lower, and have less in the summer when they're higher. Zambrosa, of course, is an antioxidant supplement that, again, antioxidants have huge benefits throughout the body, but one of them, of course, is to help protect your blood vessels. For vascular health, where you're having problems with the veins, I've always used MEGA-CHEL and butcher's broom together for that problem. You can also use the capsicum, garlic, and parsley, and also high-potency garlic. High-potency garlic, garlic has a moderate effect in helping to reduce blood pressure and a lot of beneficial effects on the cardiovascular system as a whole. Also for venous problems, you can use horse chestnut and butcher's broom, which helps to tone up your veins and improve blood flow through the veins. And again, super omega-3 EPA and Zambrosa. Wish I had a little more time to go into a little more depth about some of the things that we talked about today, but I think we've given you enough of an overview to at least give you an idea that some of the things we've been taught about the causes and solutions to heart disease aren't exactly accurate. But in the natural world, we do have some real understanding of both causes and some real solutions to helping to keep our cardiovascular system in healthy condition and reduce our risk of dying of this #1 cause of death. So I encourage you to do some additional reading and research on this topic and apply this material, because it can help you have a healthier and happier and more productive life, and can also help you to help others to do the same.